Friday afternoon at Assen, and the red flag is out because Alex Marquez is lying in the gravel at turn 11. Marshals are sprinting toward a rider who, 6 weeks ago, fractured a vertebra in his neck and shattered his right collarbone, and who just got thrown over the top of his own Ducati in a vicious highside. This was supposed to be the feel-good story of the summer. The little Marquez refusing to sit at home while the title race moved on without him. So why is he back on the ground already, on the same shoulder, in barely his second weekend back? And why is the team that cleared him suddenly choosing every word so carefully? Here is what separates this from every other crash you will see this weekend. This is not a rookie binning it on cold tyres. This is a rider whose neck is still knitting back together, whose collarbone is held by a metal plate, climbing onto the most physical bike on earth, a machine that punishes a fully fit body, and getting launched off it. The stakes are not one Friday session. They are whether this comeback was real or whether it was rushed, whether Gresini protected their rider or pushed him, and whether he is even allowed to ride tomorrow. The crash is not the story. What it exposes is... Let's start with what actually happened, because the official version is doing a lot of quiet work. The session was red flagged with just over 3 minutes left when Marquez got spat over the top of his Gresini Ducati at the exit of turn 11. He came down hard with nothing to break the fall, and he landed, of all places, on his right shoulder. The exact shoulder that took a surgical plate 6 weeks ago in Barcelona. Then came the statement, and you have to hear how it is worded. Gresini told the world that Alex Marquez had suffered, in their words, a contusion to the right shoulder and abrasions to the left arm, with no additional damage found on the shoulder X-ray. Hear that again. A contusion and some grazing. That is the language for a rider who slid off gently, not for a man with a fractured neck vertebra who was just catapulted into the air and dropped onto metalwork. And the line everyone scrolled past sits right at the end. He was, the team said, to be reviewed tomorrow before FP2. Not cleared. Reviewed. They are not telling you he is fine. They are telling you they will decide later whether he is allowed to keep risking it. Now rewind 5 days, because this is where the comeback stops looking like courage and starts looking like a countdown. Marquez was barely supposed to be racing at all yet. He missed Mugello. He missed Hungary. He came back at Brno last weekend and could not finish the job, pulling himself out after qualifying, before the race even started. The cruel detail is that he had been fast. I was much faster than what I was expecting, he admitted, but in the same breath, he named the exact parts of him that were not right. I feel stiff, I feel tired, he said, especially the neck and the shoulders still need to improve. The neck and the shoulders. Remember those 2 words. His reason for stopping, though, is the real tell. It's not that I stopped because I am unfit, he said. It was just to avoid risk. Sit with that line. To avoid risk. And oh, there is one more thing. And it is the detail that flips this entire story. Because 5 days after pulling out of Brno to avoid getting hurt, Marquez showed up at Assen and said the opposite. He told reporters the bones had healed enough to change the maths. Muscles? No, but the bones? Yes, he said. And I can take a little bit more risk. He admitted in the same breath, it's not that I will be 100%. His new goal, in his words, was to make the complete weekend. He told us, on camera, that he had decided to push harder. And then the bike collected the bill at turn 11. Think about what that sentence actually means. This was not a freak, and it was not bad luck reaching out and grabbing a healthy rider. A man with a healing neck and a plated shoulder made a conscious choice to take more risk on a half-recovered body. Said so into a microphone, and the high side arrived almost on schedule. The crash did not interrupt the comeback story. The crash was the comeback story, finally telling the truth. And he was not even the only Gresini rider down at that corner. His teammate, Fermin Aldeguer, crashed at the very same spot, thrown off and tumbling through the gravel. While Marquez was walking away, Aldeguer was being loaded up and transferred to the nearest hospital for checks on his chest and his back. A withdrawal from the weekend looking likely. Remember, Aldeguer only made it back to the grid in March after shattering his femur in January, and he is still not fully recovered. 2 comeback riders, 1 team, both of them rushed back too soon, both face down in the same gravel in the same session. 1 corner, 1 afternoon, and both Gresini Ducatis are wrecked. This is not a team having a rough Friday. This is a garage being held together with medical tape, sending half-mended riders out to chase a result. So let's say the quiet part. People watched Alex Marquez climb back on that bike 6 weeks after fracturing his neck, and they called it heroic. It was not heroism. It was a gamble, and today at Assen, the first instalment came due. Here is the flip. This was never a story about a brave rider beating his injuries. It was a story about a rider and a team, deciding that the championship and the calendar mattered more than a half-healed body, and dressing that decision up as courage. The proof is in his own timeline. At Brno, he stepped back to protect himself. At Assen, he chose to risk more. The only thing that changed in 5 days was the pressure to be back, not the medical reality of a vertebra still knitting together. And this is the part nobody in that paddock wants to say into a microphone. A highside is the single worst crash a rider with a healing neck can have. It is the one that snaps the body in the exact direction a fractured C7 cannot take. The violent whiplash a healing neck has no defense against. The neck, the shoulders, the 2 places he told us himself 5 days ago, still were not ready. Marquez did not just fall today. He rolled the dice on the one injury you do not gamble with, and he walked away with a contusion. This time. So what do we make of this? Make no mistake, Alex Marquez is tough. The will was never in question. But toughness is exactly what makes this dangerous, because a rider that stubborn will always tell you he is ready, and somebody above him is supposed to be the adult who says not yet. That is where Gresini sits tonight. They had a rider with a fractured neck vertebra and a plated collarbone. Fresh off a weekend he could not finish, telling the press he wanted to take more risk, and they let him line up. Now one of their riders is in a hospital bed, and the other is waiting on a medical review just to be allowed back out. That is not a freak Friday. That is a decision catching up with the people who made it. The comeback was sold to us as a man refusing to quit. Assen showed something colder. A rider running out of body faster than he is running out of nerve, and a team that keeps handing him the keys. The real question was never whether Alex Marquez is brave enough to get back on. It is whether anyone around him is brave enough to tell him not to. Too soon, or just racing? Let us know in the comments below. And once you do that, make sure to click on the video appearing on your screen right now. Right.